On trial in Hong Kong court over the storming of the Legislative Council complex during the 2019 pro-democracy protests. They were part of a campaign to stop the extradition bill. The protesters are accused of being part of a group of hundreds of people that vandalised the building with anti-China slogans. Latest from the BBC's Martin Yip in Hong Kong. Tell us more about the charges, Martin.
Yes, so the main charge here is rioting, which is quite a severe one, but since it's tried in the district court, the maximum jail term they are facing would be up to 7 years if found guilty. Still a very heavy one, obviously. And as far as we understand, up to this moment, among these 13 people, 7 of them have pleaded guilty as the trial begins. 5 others pleaded not guilty. One other person, the 13th one, is yet to enter a plea because apparently his lawyers are arguing whether he's mentally fit to stand trial. So that's where we're standing for. And indeed, it was one of the most momentous nights in the whole 2019 protest. That's where one of the protesters read out the demands kind of on behalf of all Hong Kong protesters, and that's where the slogan 5 demands, not one less, was coined.
I was going to ask you more about exactly what happened that day, because many of our listeners around the world will kind of remember it, but it's 4 years ago, so just put into context the events of that day for us.
Yeah, so that day began with rounds and rounds of attempt to storm the building anyway. So it began from the morning. We saw pictures of people trying to gate crash the building using whatever they could find from nearby buildings, trash carts, roadside railings, all sorts of stuff, and they've been doing that for hours, and the riot police have been holding fort inside of the legislature complex, and you didn't expect police to be inside of the legislature anyway. If you believe in the 3 estates of government, the legislature is supposed to be a rather independent place, but that's what happened. But then by the evening, the police pulled away, and by pretty late at night, hundreds of them managed to run into the building. They've painted black the city's emblem inside the main chamber. They've pulled down portraits of speakers of the council, past and present, and a lot of other facilities were vandalized, and also the old colonial Hong Kong flag was put out as a sign of defiance. So all these actions by the protesters wearing mostly black t-shirts and yellow hemlets have outraged not just the local government but also Beijing, obviously, and we ended up almost 1 year later in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, with Beijing imposing the Hong Kong national security law with charges, if found guilty, could see you in life imprisonment. That's how the whole movement failed.
Yes, I was just going to ask you about the possible punishment. So those who pleaded not guilty, if they're found guilty, could be imprisoned for life. What about people who have pleaded guilty? What could the punishment be for them?
Well, just to clarify, for this very case, because it's rioting, it's not charged under national security law, and the law didn't come to exist until after this event. So they are facing up to 7 years in jail because it's tried in the district court. The law itself said the maximum jail time is 10 years, but the district court itself only has a jurisdiction to sentence people to 7 years. That's what we are going to see by the end of this trial, and it's expected to last for 44 working days.
Martin, thank you very much.
And here with all the latest voting headlines is Rebecca Adams. Thank you very much, Vic. Well, after many managerial changes, drama and, of course, controversy, the Premier League season has come to an end. Everton escaped relegation with a final day win over Bournemouth, with Leicester and Leeds dropping down to the second-tier Championship. That's despite a win over West Ham for Leicester. In Spain's La Liga, champions Barcelona were comfortable 3-0 winners over Mallorca in their final game at the Nou Camp until November of next year, until the ground is redeveloped. Formula One and Red Bull's Max Verstappen is already 39 points clear at the top of the Drivers' Championship. That's after he won a very wet Monaco Grand Prix in his 4th victory of the season. And the Ukrainian tennis player Marta Kostyuk believes the French Open crowd should be embarrassed. That's after they booed her off court. She refused to shake hands with second seed Irina Sabalenka. That's after their first round match in the women's singles, which Sabalenka won in straight sets. And there's more sport in half an hour. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Now from sport to business, we are going to join Mariko Oy, who is in Singapore, for the latest business news. Mariko, it's all about the reaction to a possible US debt ceiling.
Yes, absolutely, because Asian markets, of course, are the first to react to that possible deal that was agreed upon apparently over the weekend. Of course, it's not a done deal yet, and a Japanese economy geek in me is very excited that Japan's Nikkei 225 is now way above 31,000. You know, we've been talking about 30,000 being psychologically important, and it's something that we've not seen for many, many years. In fact, about a year and a half ago, it went above it for a very short time, but then before that, it was actually in the 1990s. You know, it basically was the asset bubble bursting back in the 90s, which started that decades of very slow, if at all, economic growth in the world's third biggest economy in Japan. So, you know, Nikkei 225 doing really well, trading at the highest level in 33 years, and that's partly in reaction to that agreement in the US. So, yeah, very exciting.
You said that it's not quite yet a done deal with that US debt ceiling because lawmakers in America, they still have to vote on that agreement.
Absolutely, and of course you have the House of Representatives, which is controlled by a slim majority by the Republicans, and also the Senate, which is controlled by Democrats. And this deal that was agreed upon over the weekend, some lawmakers have been voicing concerns and criticizing that it's just a compromise. So whether or not it actually passes both chambers, that remains to be seen. But of course, we're really running out of time because the US Treasury has been warning, Janet Yellen has been warning that the 1st of June was the hard deadline. She has now changed it, so we have a few more days, but that's not a lot of time. So in about a week's time, the US government, of course, the world's biggest economy, could run out of money to pay all its bills. So, and that never happened before, so that's why a lot of people are concerned.
Mariko Oy there with all the latest business report. This is a news there on the BBC World Service.
We've been covering the escalating conflict in Sudan for the past few weeks on the programme. Now Saudi Arabia and the US are calling for a ceasefire to be extended. The latest agreement is meant to lapse today, Monday. The warring factions have reportedly to agree to another truce yet, although it's yet to be formalised, the sense that there might be an extension. Previous ceasefires have been repeatedly violated with growing concerns over fighting across the country. I've been talking to Suleiman Baldo from the Sudan Transparency and Policy Tracker organisation.
The facilitators have issued a scathing statement, basically documenting serious violations by both parties to the conflict in Sudan, the Sudan Armed Forces and the Rebel Support Forces. Sudan Armed Forces has been found to have conducted air surveillance and air raids, bombings of civilian public properties such as the currency print house. And the Rebel Support Forces were found as continuing to embed themselves in residential neighborhoods, taking part in massive looting and theft and destruction of private property of Sudanese citizens who were forced out of their homes or who had to leave because of the fighting.
So it's really only a ceasefire of sorts, although maybe containing the level of violence that would otherwise ensue. And there's a lot of pressure to try and extend it. It's been in place for 5 days. Countries like the US and Saudi Arabia want it extended for longer.
The two facilitators, in fact, yes, are using the argument that we didn't respect the ceasefire the first time around as comprehensive as we wanted. Now we will give you another opportunity by extending. Therefore, they're putting a lot of pressure on the SAF and the Rebel Support Forces to extend the ceasefire and try to behave better next time.
And what's supposed to happen during the ceasefire? To what extent do we see meaningful talks?
The ceasefire is supposed to free the forces where they are, and therefore no movement of troops or aerial surveillance, no attempts to use the ceasefire as an opportunity to reinforce positions or to prepare for attacks on particular strongholds of the other party. Ceasefire is supposed primarily to also allow humanitarian access and protect humanitarian workers who deliver this assistance to victims of the conflict. It is also supposed to force the parties to free health facilities and other facilities that are essential for the civilian populations.
And civilians in Khartoum are being asked to join the army, aren't they, or to fight with the army, which is pretty desperate.
This is a desperate step, the statement was issued by the Minister of Defense, calling on all the retirees of the Sudan Armed Forces to go to the nearest military station to be armed, but also to all able civilians. However, the same statement was drawn and reposted in the army's media without the reference to civilians. In Darfur, the governor of Darfur made a call to civilians to arm themselves to protect their persons and property, which is again a measure of desperation and a measure of basically public admittance that the government is unable to protect its own citizens. This is really the worst case scenario, and if this conflict continues at the national level, it will gradually lead to the total disruption in Darfur and everyone fighting the other because of the long history of intercommunal fighting in that region.
Simon Bardo from the Sudan Transparency and Policy Tracker talking me through where we've got to in the conflict in Sudan, the possibility of an extension to the ceasefire due to expire today.
Now to Saudi Arabia and its ambitious football league. Cristiano Ronaldo is already there, and now another superstar, Lionel Messi, could very well be the next superstar to join. Speculation is also mounting of a potential Saudi-led World Cup bid. The kingdom's influence on the game is growing, but will it be sustained? My colleague Alex Kapstick reports.
Saudi Arabia's thrilling victory against Argentina, one of the standout results at the World Cup. A monumental moment for the tens of thousands of fans who poured across the Qatari border last November.
Always win out when we play. We will win. You know that, and you believe it.
The euphoria was short-lived. Saudi lost their next two games and failed to qualify from their group. But that success over Argentina, the eventual world champions, laid down a marker. Football in Saudi Arabia was on the rise.
It showcases that, everything that we've been developing in the kingdom and spending for the federations, and especially the football federation, that paid off.
The country's sports minister, Prince Abdulaziz bin Turki Al Faisal, speaking to us during the World Cup in Qatar, and the Saudis would soon spring another surprise.
Well, for me, it's a pleasure to be here.
Cristiano Ronaldo shocked many when he signed for the Riyadh-based club Al Nassr. And now, Lionel Messi could become the next member of football's royalty to join the Saudi Pro League.
I am Simon Chadwick, Professor of Sports and Geopolitical Economy at Skema Business.
약 700m 앞 태고사 삼거리에서 금산, 방면 우회전하세요.
Simon Chadwick is an expert on the geopolitics of sport. He says figures like Ronaldo and Messi are a crucial part of a carefully planned strategy.
At one level, Messi and Ronaldo are billboards for brand Saudi Arabia and Saudi Arabian ambitions. But I think in many ways they're also legacy signings as well. So if they can inspire the next generation of Saudi Arabian youngsters, either to play or to watch, to engage with the sport, then their signings will be worth it for that reason.
China is changing, with the rhythm of football taking hold.
Not so long ago, China had similar ideas to turbocharge the development of football. It didn't work. The money dried up, clubs went bust. The once grand ambitions, now discarded. But Simon Chadwick sees big differences with Saudi Arabia, where the game is already popular and the national team is a regular at World Cups.
Saudi Arabian football is well established in a way that, for example, Chinese football isn't. If you look at the big games in Saudi Arabia, you're talking about on average 40, 50, 60,000 people attending such games. I think there is a sense within Saudi Arabian government that they're pushing at an open door when it comes to football.
I think that no one wants, Ronaldo to be there at the expense of their freedom or to be in prison because they criticize anything that